Drop it. So, if you saw Ready Player One, you know that this is the intro to the movie. 1984 by Van Halen. Actually, it came out New Year's Eve, 1983, to start the New Year's off, all right? I have my sound technician here. I'll give a couple shout-outs right now. I got Bernie 1869, Nemesis Prime, Biggie's Comics. Biggie's, what up, my boy? Great show the other night. Glad you got juice like that. That's awesome. Bernie 1869 saw it yesterday. Doomsday Comics is online. Oh, this is great for a Saturday, or I don't even know what day it is. What day is it? Wednesday afternoon, right? All right. All right, let's kill the music. Okay, a little more. All right, thank you very much, sound technician. You are done. All right. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Otto's Grotto, all things geek and unique, featuring three men in a basement. And right now, it is not three men in a basement. It is me by myself in my basement. I am Otto, and this is my grotto. I have been waiting a long time to put this together and talk about this because Ready Player One is absolutely epic in my mind. And so I'm going to preface this by saying, one, if you have not read the book and are planning to read the book, I'm going to talk a lot about the book. So, tons of spoiler alerts for the book. If you haven't seen the movie yet and are planning to see the movie, please stop watching me right now because I am going to spoil the hell out of it. I'm going to talk about the differences between the movie and the book and some things that could have been intertwined to it. I'm not able to monitor the live chat, so if you guys want to just chat away, and I'm just going to babble along about this great movie. So, I read Ready Player One 3 years ago from a friend of mine who is kind of actually a cousin who's a sci-fi kind of geek, knows I kind of love pop culture. So he said, hey, you got to read this book by Ernest Cline. So Ready Player One was written by Ernest Cline, and it takes place in the future, I think 2049, centered in Columbus, Ohio. Now, the world in 2049 sucks. There was an energy crisis. There's broadband wars. So everything that's happening in the future kind of sucks. And everybody lives in the Oasis. And you know what? It kind of reminds me of World of Warcraft from 10 years ago when I was playing. And also, it reminds me a lot of Fortnite right now because my kids are living in Fortnite. They're constantly playing. Thumbs up if everybody else knows what I'm talking about as far as Fortnite and all the things that are involved with playing Fortnite. It's crazy how these kids are involved in Fortnite. It looks like a cool game. I played it. I got motion sick. I'm good with it. All right. So I've got these cameras. I got a lot of glare right now. So let me just start talking about what was Ready Player One. So Ready Player One, like I said, is based in the future, 2049, Columbus, Ohio. Our main character, his real name is Wade Watts. And what's really great about it in the movie, they referred as his parents kind of said, well, it's kind of like a superhero name. Now, Ready Player One was a Warner Brothers studio movie. So in the movie itself, you have tons and tons of Warner Brothers characters, all right? When I first heard about Ready Player One, my biggest concern was, how can they bring all these different characters together and get all the licensing and the legal fees and everything like that? The movie itself was directed by Steven Spielberg, right? Hollywood gold, right? Hollywood hierarchy. Steven Spielberg talks, people listen. Now, the movie takes place, the majority of the movie takes place in the Oasis, okay? The Oasis is a virtual reality world created by somebody from the 1980s named James Halliday, okay? James Halliday is a very brilliant guy. In the books, it talked about how he had shades of autism, which how he was on the spectrum of Asperger's and stuff like that. And, in today's world, you could borderline say that, they've always talked about how Bill Gates has shades of autism and Asperger's syndrome in it. He had a good partner. His name was Ogden Morrow, who was his partner when he built it. So you kind of get the Steve Jobs kind of feel of it, and eventually their relationship crumbles, like, Steve Jobs did with his buddy. Oh my God, I can't think of the person that's still alive, but I apologize for that. So they build this virtual reality world called the Oasis. And James Halliday is a product of the 80s. He grew up in the 80s. He grew up with the Ataris, the TRS-80s, with Dungeons and Dragons, with Gary Gygax, Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, all that kinds of stuff. Stuff that I am a part of. I've lived and breathed the 80s. I'm a product of the 80s. I've lived through all this stuff. So reading this book and hearing all the references to the 80s was amazing. So James Halliday dies. And his goal in this was to create a contest with 3 hidden keys to his kingdom, his fortune. If you solve this, you will get his fortune. You will get control of the Oasis, and you will be unimaginably wealthy, which is unbelievable. So the whole premise of the story is how the Gunters and the Sixers, who are the 2 main groups, are always looking for the keys. Now, James Halliday created a world so vast that after a couple of years, people realized, like, hey, man, this might not even be real. This crazy kook might not have done this. So it just became a world where people lived. Currency was more relevant in the Oasis than it was in the real world. So Gunters are short for egg hunters, and the Sixers are from a company called IOI. IOI was this company who took the Oasis, took technology for it, and just blew it up and made lots and lots of money. Now, the whole premise of a egg hunter or Gunter is based on Easter eggs in video games. All right, so I'm going to do a little educating to you right now. I did not know this when I was a kid. I wish I did. It took Ready Player One and Ernest Cline to educate me as far as what the first Easter egg came from. The first Easter egg came from an Atari video game, the original Atari, which I had as a kid, and it was called Adventure. Now, when Atari first created their video games, they didn't want the creators or the programmers to get credit for the video games. It was just Atari as a company. So this one guy said, you know what? Screw you, I'm going to put my name in this video game. So he created this little dot in this room, because, I mean, it was 8-bit at best for video games, and put this little dot in there, and some kid, before social media, before, Twitch, before YouTube, before Snapchat, before Facebook, before the internet, found this little dot and carried it around through the whole video game till he got back to the beginning. And when he got back to the beginning, the game lit up and it said, Adventure created by so-and-so, the guy's name, which eludes me right now, and I apologize for that. So that is the first Easter egg ever attached to a video game. Now you have Easter eggs all over the place. You've got to unlock this, you've got to unlock this. I'm not a video gamer, I apologize. I quit after the 80s. I went as far as an Apple II and the original Castle Wolfenstein video game. So in the movie, we have the main character, Wade Watts, whose skin name is Percival. Percival was the knight who found the Holy Grail and of the King Arthur and Legends of Excalibur. What's very cool about Percival is if you look at him, his skin, on the back of his jacket, he has a sword. And I've only seen it twice. I haven't looked at detail, but I bet $1 million that is Excalibur on the back of his jacket. All right. So that's really cool. And in the story, they have 3 keys, and that's exactly like the book, to unlock James Halliday's golden treasure, right? To get to the end. But it's happened for so long that nobody's done it. So Percival goes to a virtual reality high school. And in this virtual reality high school, he has his virtual friends. He has his buddy H, who is his best friend. He has another good friend, or another character. I wouldn't say he's a friend. He's kind of like that dude that you're like, hey, what's up to? Or, that kind of kid that you saw in the halls and you were like, yeah, I know him. Not really one of my boys. And that boy was IROC, right? IROCK. right? IROC, 1988, 1987. I never owned an IROC when I was a kid. I couldn't afford it, but IROCs were the cars to own in the 80s. But in the movie, IROC is one of the main villains. He's a henchman of Sorrento, and that was kind of tough for me because, he was not a bad guy. He wasn't a good guy. He was kind of like the pain in the ass, but clearly in the movie, he was a bad guy. So I don't understand why they did that. Now, I'm going to also say this. I understand that you can't take everything and put it into the movie, okay? So that being said, I'm okay with both versions of it. The book was great. The movie was great. Would I've liked to seen a few other things involved in it? I will. So IROC in the book was kind of like that douchebag in high school. You're like, all right, dude, I ain't messing with you. You're a clown, but you're kind of always around. So, you go to the parties and you're there, or whatever. I get it, teenage stuff. So Wade has 3 different quests. The first quest in the movie was this race. And the movie starts off right off the bat. It's a race to get to the end, to get to this gate. And you've got to go through all these different things. Now, Wade's car is really, really cool. It's the DeLorean from Back to the Future with the KITT intelligence in it. I mean, if that's not 80s, I don't know what is. The DeLorean from Back to the Future, the KITT computer, all in one car. Awesome. His boy H is driving the Bigfoot truck. And when you were a kid, the first monster truck that I remember was Bigfoot, right? Now they have Monster Jam with all the different kinds of trucks and everything like that. So right off the bat, he meets Artemis, okay? Artemis is a female character who is kind of like the internet crush that Wade has. He follows her on blogs. She's like the hipster and stuff like that. Now, I don't know about you, but I have a few people in my life that have met people online and have actually met them out in the real world, and one were either disappointed or 2 ended up getting married to him. So, that is kind of, the reality of the world that we live in. So, as we go on, Artemis's motorcycle she had a motorcycle, and it was a Tron motorcycle. Fantastic, dope, really, really cool, all right? But in the book, it wasn't a race. This is all they could have done. So, again, one of my top favorite movies is Highlander, right? Only Highlander 1. Highlander 2 and 3 doesn't exist in my mind. Highlander 1 does. Extended version also. And the TV show. The TV show was great too. So I agree that the TV show is also considered canon in the Highlander universe. So when Percival meets Artemis, she says, "What's your name?" He goes, Artemis says, "My name is Juan Sanchez Villalobos Ramirez, chief meteorologist to the King of Spain." That is exactly what Sean Connery said to Connor McLeod in Highlander. "I'm Juan Sanchez Villalobos Ramirez." Just like that. So huge throwback to Highlander. Absolutely loved it. They could have put that in a movie, is my point. That was a quick line. It was a great flashback to Highlander. They could have used that, but they didn't. Why? Don't know. I'm not Steven Spielberg. I don't make those decisions. So, in the first quest, it's a car race in a movie, but it's not anywhere like that in the book. So, this is why I think you guys should get the book. The first book is based on a D&D module. Now, again, Dungeons and Dragons was huge. This is Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. These are modules right here. I brought this out to show it to you. When I was looking through my old modules, I actually thought I had Tomb of Horrors, which is what the first quest is based on. And this is Horror on the Hill. So I was like, I have it, but then I don't. So the first module, so Wade has to find in all the different worlds, and believe it or not, there's a world called Gygax, who was Gary Gygax, the creator of TSR, Dungeons and Dragons and stuff like that. He has to find the Tomb of Horrors. He realizes that's where the first key is. So he brushes up on the Tomb of Horrors and learns all the things about it. In modules, it's all based on dice and characters that you encounter and dice rolls and stuff like that. So you go back and forth quite often and stuff like that. But he memorizes where all the traps are. But he goes into the module and he gets some D&D artifacts. Now, if you were a high-level character in D&D, a 20 to 25th level, everything you had was +5. If you're first, second, third, or fourth level characters, anything that has any magical abilities has a plus. So this is what he finds. He finds a +1 flaming sword. Now just imagine a regular sword, bastard long, or two-handed. I don't believe it was a two-handed, which is a +1. So any dice rolls that you would have, if you needed a 16 to hit this character, you had +1 to it. So that was very cool. Flaming sword meant it did damage to undead characters in the Dungeons and Dragons world. He also had a +1 ring of protection, which means that if somebody was trying to attack him and they rolled a dice, his defense would get a +1. He also had a +3. His armor was +3 full plate mail. Now, full plate mail is exactly what you would envision the Knights of the Round Table wearing. Full metal, full garb. You got to hack and slash to get these guys to get through their metal, okay? And that was actually +3. And he had this, so he found all this stuff as he was going through the module to find the copper key. In the module, he has to defeat a Lich King. Now, a Lich in the undead world is kind of like a vampire, except it doesn't turn into a bat and it doesn't turn into gas. A Lich is an undead creature that's been around for hundreds of years, and when it touches you, it actually sucks your life from you, okay? So as I'm reading the book, I'm like, how can this guy with these meager magic items actually go after and attack the Lich King and do some damage to it? So he gets through the whole thing, gets through all the traps, and he meets the Lich King. And this is where my 80s lore falls in love. Because the Lich King says, okay, they're not going to do hand-to-hand combat because Percival would die. He says, let's joust. And Percival says, joust? Like you would imagine 2 horses, 2 large sticks, 2 guys going at each other with the sticks. No. In the book, they actually have to play the video game Joust against each other. Now, if you remember the video game Joust, it had 4 or 5 different layers, and you were on a flying, I thought it was an ostrich, and you had to land on the character in order to beat it. Now, you had 2 joysticks. I always like to go double. I thought my coordination was better when I went double. I wasn't very good at it. Did I die a bunch of times? Yes. Did my high score ever get up there? No. On a personal note, Galaga was always my game. Galaga and Pac-Man, all right? So he has to joust the Lich King 2 out of 3 times in order to get the key. So in the book, again, it goes into detail about his skills and how he has to switch or whatever. So he beats the Lich King. He gets the key. He is the first name up on the leaderboard. And that is absolutely cool because that actually happens in the movies because in the movie, he solves for the first key. He gets the first key. His name goes up on the leaderboard. Awesome. There we go. Then it talks about, then he had to do something else where he had to go through a TSR 80 game, Dungeons of Agaroth, which I'm not familiar with. The TRS 80 computer was, Texas Instruments. They called that the Trash 80, which was a awful computer back in the day that really didn't do much. And that's what this whole thing is about. Oh my God, I forgot the beginning of the movie. Everett, I forgot the beginning of the movie. All right, I have to digress and go all the way back to the beginning of the movie. In the beginning of the movie, it starts off at James Halliday's funeral. In the movie, it opens up to him coming out of a Star Trek, which I'm a huge fan of. Spoilers coming soon. I'll let you know about that in a second. Photon torpedo. And it is a huge Star Trek Federation burial. And he has 2 quarters in his eyes, which is what we played video games with. They were only a quarter, and the years were 1971 or 1972, which was the years of when he was born. So, in the book, it doesn't start that way. In the book, it's much more detailed. It gets into the movie Heathers with Winona Ryder. Oingo Boingo, yes, I remember Oingo Boingo, is playing Dead Man's Party. And then he gets up and he says, hey, if you're listening to me, then I'm dead. So 2 distinct differences in the opening scenes, but both culturally relevant to the 80s. I'm a huge Trekkie. the photon torpedo was amazing. And that's how when senior officers died in the Star Trek universe, they put their bodies in torpedoes and they launched them out to space, and that was their funerals. So I apologize for that. I was getting ahead of myself. So now Percival has the second key, or the first key, and he's high and mighty. His name goes on the leaderboard. In the movie, there's this whole thing where he goes to find out about things about James Halliday, and it's kind of like in this museum where he meets this robot, this artificial intelligence, and the artificial intelligence is kind of like telling him how to reference information. And in the movie, that's actually Ogden Morrow. Ogden Morrow is Halliday's partner. That never happens in the book. Ogden Morrow in the book has a huge role, and I won't really tell you much more about that, but Ogden Morrow's character is such more prevalent in the book, which I think was really, really cool. What the movie didn't do was Percival got some bonus points. All right, he earned some bonus points for reciting specific lines in the movie, which favorite terminology was, "Shall we play a game?" Anybody remember that movie? War Games, that's right. So he goes through this bonus scene where he actually recites the exact vocabulary that Matthew Broderick did in order to kind of fool the computer in War Games from launching all the missiles. War Games, culturally relevant movie in the 1980s. Matthew Broderick, phenomenal, great movie. Tons of John Hughes references in this movie. Tons of high school things. So very, very neat stuff. What else would I wanted to say? So there's another scene which I was actually really, if I was going to say I was disappointed in the movie, I was disappointed by this. So in the movie, it's all about how James Halliday missed a chance with Kira, who actually becomes Ogden Morrow's wife. He missed a chance to take her out dancing and to take that leap and to kiss the girl. And, as a kid in the 80s, that was a very weird thing to do per se, to kiss your first girl or whatever. And he missed that chance. So him and Artemis want to meet at this disco, which is like a zero gravity nightclub. And it's very cool because as you go in, you see tons of different characters. There's a girl dressed up as Harlequin. There's tons of different characters. Actually, in the movie, when they went through the big race, somebody was actually driving the 1966 Batmobile. Fantastic, dope, really cool. But that's not what happened in the book. Percival became so popular that Ogden Morrow, who was turning 80, was having this huge birthday party at the same place. And Percival didn't know what to wear, so he's changing he's talking to his boy H, who he thinks is a boy, which is actually a girl in reality, which was one of the whole things. Like, who do you know who you're chatting with? You're looking at this, dime of a woman, but, could be a 375-pound guy living in his grandmother's basement, So, that's just how the internet works. It's happened to people. It's going to happen again. And c'est la vie, that's it. So it's Ogden Morrow's 80th birthday party. And in the Oasis, they don't touch on this. You have two different types of planets. You have your PvP, your player versus player planet, and you have your regular planet. And you couldn't attack somebody. You couldn't die on the non-PvP planet, which was neat because in the Oasis, if you died, if you zeroed out, you lost everything you earned. You would respawn, but you would have none of your gear, which was obviously in a world that's as relevant as that, very important. So as Percival's getting ready, he changes all his looks, and he puts on this Buckaroo Banzai outfit. Buckaroo Banzai was a cultural cult movie classic in the 80s. If you've seen it, you've only seen it in the 80s. You're not going to watch it now. It was absolutely corny, absolutely terrible, but it was something that was on the back of every comic book that you were buying between 1986 and probably 1987. But was really cool, and I don't know why, and I guess I know why, because of licensing. So they walk into this zero gravity dance room, and they have the first DJ, and guess who the first DJ is? R2D2. So if you could imagine R2D2 spinning the ones and twos, scratching, cutting it up, getting all funky on the keyboards on the ones and twos, that was really cool. And he is playing DJ. So Artemis and Percival are having their conversations and they're going back and forth. And then something happens where it's a giant globe and the Sixers attack. So, and that actually does happen in the movie. It happens in the book. So the Sixers attack, they come down, guns start blazing, all types of different weapons are going on. All of a sudden, Ogden Morrow stands up because at the time he was playing DJ. He became DJ now. And he says, "You creeps think you can crash my party?" And lightning bolts fly out of his hands. I'm getting a call right now. Lightning bolts fly out of his hands. And just like Darkseid's laser beams from his eyes, they go right at all the Sixers. And they take out every Sixer. And all I could imagine is this grand wizard with his hands pointed out and the lightning blasting everywhere and just taking out every Sixer possible. And they could have put that in a movie. Why they didn't, I don't know. But if you read the book, you're going to get a huge, huge chill like I did. So that's really something that I thought was amazing. So they go on to the second key in the movie. It's based on The Shining. Now, I'm not a huge Shining fan. I didn't like horror stuff when I was a kid, but I'm familiar with it. Great scene in the movie. In the book, it has more something to do with kid cereal, and I'm going to leave it at that. His boy H is creating an Iron Giant robot. So I'm repping the Iron Giant. I love bots. I love robots. I love Shogun Warriors. I love Transformers. I love anything cool. At the end, so I'm going to jump to the second key. I'm not going to tell you guys the third key. I'm definitely not going to tell you how it plays out. You need to see the movie. But I will tell you that you're going to see Mechagodzilla. You're going to see some dope Gundams, which I'm not familiar with. But again, they're giant bots and they love to battle. In the book, though, he has two of his friends, Sho and Daihatsu, if I'm saying those names right. And they have this artifact where they can use this artifact once a day. In the book, in the movie, it was only once. And I think it was Daihatsu can turn into Ultraman, right? Now, if you're a fan of Japanese Godzilla movies and stuff like that, you know who Ultraman is. In the movie, it doesn't happen, but if you looked at the posters, you can kind of figure out who it is. I'm not going to spoil all that for you. I'm going to leave some of the imagination up to you guys. So I've been on for, I can't even see for a couple minutes. I've kind of talked about this. I've given you my ones and twos. There's tons of other things that happen. All the old video games. Pac-Man is involved. His Ogden Morrow's favorite show at the time was Family Ties. So there's lots of history involved with that. Lots of history with TV shows, video games in the book. The movie is more of 80s and 90s and stuff like that because you've got to appeal to all the audiences. If this was strictly about the 80s, then you'd only get guys in their 40s to 50s watching it. You want to get everybody involved. But my hat's off to Steven Spielberg. He did do a great job with this. He was able to make this into a great film. I've seen it twice. I feel that Ready Player One has high rewatchability. I mean, in the huge battle scene at the end, you see the guys dressed up from Halo. You see the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. There's a alien chest buster in there. One of the starships you see is from The Last Starfighter, if you even know that. So I hope I've educated you a little bit. I hope, well, actually, I want to say something. There's the book, there's the movie, and there's also the audio book, which is actually like 17 hours long, and it's done by Will Wheaton, who plays Wesley Crusher on Star Trek The Next Generation. How do I know this? Because I'm a huge Trek fan. Will Wheaton was Wesley, Beverly Crusher's son. He's a pop culture kind of kid. He's, in his 30s or 40s right now. But anyway, Will Wheaton does play a big role in the Star Trek universe as far as Wesley Crusher, the prodigal son in the Star Trek world. So I'm going to wrap up everything that I'm saying right now with go see Ready Player One. Please check it out. I've got a few posters just like this extra. If you share my video and just type me a claim, I'll do my best to send it out to you. in a timely manner. They're just movie posters. They were giving them away. I've got about 6 of them, so if I get 6 claims in my comments, I'll send them out to you. The music was great. Also, if you're a Rush fan, from the band Rush, the Canadian Rush band, there's a huge tribute to Rush 2112 and the Priest's song, and it's just really good. So thank you for listening to me. I am Otto. This is my grotto. I'm signing out. Thank you very much, and check back with us soon. We're going to do our hour-long show for 3 Men in a Basement. We've got lots of comic hauls. I've got 3 books coming back from CGC. Fantastic Four number 4, Avengers number 4, and Giant Size X-Men number 1, which I've been waiting on. They were all pressed. I'm hoping for mid-grades anywhere from 3s to 5s. My GSX-1, I'm hoping back comes about a 6.5 to 7. I don't know, but they're on their way. CGC told me that. So thank you very much. I am Otto. This is my grotto, and I am out.